E360 TV proudly presents messages of inspirational stories. Live streaming now to millions of devices, including Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, Android TV, YouTube Live, Facebook Live, with your host, Donna Guimwa, producer and host, Jim Grant, producer and host, along with Michaela Vidal, administrator and host, and Gaia Guimwa Balconi Wada, editor-in-chief. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show. My goodness gracious, there's Mr. Emerson Brantley joining us today.
Hello, Jim.
How you doing, sir?
Doing great, man, but I'll get better.
I hear you. I tell you right now, we like to start off the show by just saying thank you so much for being with us today. We're brought to you by the good guys at the 6 Minute Webinar, and we're so honored that they're associated with us. And most importantly, we're glad you're here with us on the show today, because today we're going to be talking about how youth can make a difference, and we're going to be talking about mentorship and how important that is. But before we get going today, I want to give a shout out to Aaron Hymas. I don't know if Aaron is watching us or huh?
That's a good one.
Oh, yeah. Aaron Hymas is the president of E360 TV, the studio that we broadcast from. And he doesn't know, or doesn't know unless he's watching, that we're going to be doing a shout out today to him. We want to thank him for just being a good friend. We do business with him. I've been on the show here for, wow, I forget how long it's been now. It's been a month or two at least.
Oh, shoot. We even spent a few days in Tomball, Texas with him.
Yes, we did. We all stayed at a beautiful Airbnb, and we all, it was a very comfortable home, and it was a very wonderful time because Emerson, you and your wife Ann were there. I was there. Donna and Gaia were there with us, along with Mr. Aaron Hymas, and we all just had a wonderful time together. Not to mention, we ate real good too, didn't we?
Hey, that was some good salmon, wasn't it?
I mean to tell you, when it comes to, barbecue or grilling out some salmon, give Emerson a call. He'll come over and he'll just really, he'll do a number on that salmon for you. It was delicious. And today we're going to be talking about mentorship because, Emerson, looking back, I think all of us as adults can think about the different mentors we've had in our lives and how important they were to us. I know you've had a few, hadn't you?
Yeah, I have. And I've lost count of the people that I have mentored. Although I well remember one, this gal who worked at an office that I worked at, and she used to come up to me. She'd go, "I want you to mentor me. I want you to mentor me."
Mental me.
She wanted me to, in terms of copywriting and marketing and stuff like that. She wanted me to mentor her. And finally, I brought in an old lit book about this thick from high school days, and I left it on her chair. And she said, when she got in, she came over and she said, "Why did you leave that on my chair?" I said, "Well, you wanted me to help you learn how to write." She said, "Yeah, I want to learn how to write, not how to read." I said, "Well, you got to start. Start by reading good literature, and guess what? You'll start getting the flow of it. You'll start getting the words of it. You'll start getting it all in your head." I said, if you want to write, you need to learn how to read."
That's a very good point, because when you read good stuff that you can learn from, it teaches you a lot. It helps you develop your own pattern, your own flavor, because that's what an author is. An author is a storyteller that tells it in their own words, with their own flavor, their own personality. And that's what people really tune into, isn't it?
It is. And this is a real trick here. and this has to do with how your brain works. If you come across something that just really resonates with you, a passage or a page, or in one case for me, it was a 20-page letter, take out a pad and a pen. Don't do this on your keyboard. And write it out. Copy it. Not once, not twice, but over a period of days, copy that word for word, 5, 10, 15, 20 times. And you go, that's insane. Why would anybody do that many times? Who has time to do that? But the thing is, what happens when your hand is connected with the paper, and this is science, this isn't my opinion. They've proven this many, many times. The connection between the textual, when you're actually feeling the writing, it's going through your hand and your brain and your eyes are seeing it. And reading it out loud is another thing to do. But if you do that 5, 10, 15, 20 times, you'll start getting the flow and the feel and the energy in it. And you'll know there's times to build the tension and there's times to release the tension. And there's times to build the excitement and there's times to calm it down. And you start getting that kind of a sense of what really good writing is about. And this keys right into what we're going to be talking about today, Jim.
It certainly does. And, here recently, ladies and gentlemen, I've started the practice of cursive writing.
Oh, wow. They don't even teach it in many schools anymore.
Yeah, because the other day I had to write something on a card. And I started writing it and I thought, I've lost this talent that I used to have, because I used to be able to really write very readable words in cursive. And if they read that, they probably thought, I think Jim missed his calling. He should have went to doctor school and wrote prescriptions.
That's definitely when I do script, it's it looks like they say, why didn't you go to doctor? Why didn't you go to school to become a doctor? I said, well, it was too easy. The first 3 semesters, it's all about writing. And I had that now.
I know what you mean, because for so many years, I've practiced and honed my skills at typing, and cursive handwriting went on the back burner, because in my mind, hey, I can do that. Yes, I can. But I've lost my unique flavor of the way I could, write words and people could read it. And now it looks more like I'm in the 3rd grade learning cursive again. And so I'm practicing on that. And that's a good eye-hand coordination.
It is. And here's the thing in what I was talking about, even if nobody else can read it, but you write it out, you get the sense of it. There's a connection between the brain and the vision and the textual, the feeling of it on the paper, making those moves to make the letters on the paper. And when you add into that reading it out loud, you're hitting all the things that make your brain just start firing off like crazy.
Absolutely.
This is good for students. If you're in school, high school, or college, or whatever, everybody uses their. They make notes, an awful lot of the notes, using digital options that we have that we didn't have a few years back. But if you really want to nail something in your head, move over to the paper and the pen. This isn't just some old guy talking about this. I mean, Harvard and Scripps and other institutions have spent decades studying the importance of that brain, eye, sound, speaking it, and the hand, the textual writing, and the ability to retain the information and to process the information. It's amazing. It really is. Yeah. That's how our brains were made. Our brains were not made for hunching and punching, on the keyboard.
Yeah. I used to tease people when I first started texting. I had one of these slide phones where it had the keyboard underneath. And
I had one of those too.
Yeah. I used to tell people when it comes to texting, I'm all thumbs.
But you know what's so funny about it, and I had it. I think Minolta made the one that I had. It slid out, and you had the little keyboard.
Yeah. Mhm.
I tell you what, I probably never used it more than 10 times because I really quickly. It was easier to hold it and work with the visual keyboard that just popped up. They were bigger
Mhm.
keys,
Mhm.
and I didn't have as big a thing to hold. And
Mhm.
I probably never used that keyboard more than maybe 10 times
Hmm.
in the couple of years that I owned it.
Yeah. One of the key things I think is really critical for young people, especially kids, is to be a good mentor, you got to be committed to it
True.
because kids are looking for that stability in their lives. So many kids nowadays don't have that. And I think that the market or the need for kids having good mentors, I think it is off the chart now, more so than it's ever been in the past. Would you agree with that, Emerson?
Yeah, it is in many ways a different world, but in many ways it's the same world. And you
Mhm.
know, one of the things with kids, and gosh, I just have to say this, right? My wife is way better at this even than I. I mean, she just is so good at this because she was professor for so many years.
Oh,
But
yeah.
it's asking them what they think, asking them what they feel, asking them what their ideas are. And
Mm. That's Ann in the background. Hey, Ann, how you
that's Ann
doing?
in the background, and the FCC is now going to shut us down, Jim.
Oh, okay. I'm
but
not
but
worried
uh,
about that.
but asking them, what their take is on it, what's their thought on, it, what do they feel about it, and
Mhm.
letting letting them explore those areas of their mind and their brain, and being able to give them support and feedback.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
That's very critical for the feedback to be positive and, in a very constructive way. And but I like what Ann said about asking them about what they think there, because therefore, if you ask questions, you have a better foundation on where they're coming from, what their expectations are, and most importantly, what they understand.
And you're letting them know that you put some value on what they are thinking and feeling,
Hmm.
and that's important because you know anything at all when you're teaching or mentoring people,
Hmm.
uh, there's a sense of sitting at the foot of the guru or whatever. There's this sense of that, but that's not how you end up internalizing and applying it and using it and owning it yourself in your
Hmm.
own life.
Hmm.
But being able to connect with the thoughts and the reasoning and the thinking that you have, and then having somebody that you consider a mentor,
Hmm.
validating that's powerful.
Yes, it
That's
is.
powerful. And then if something is off base or something is, something, helping them to think through that part of the process so that it's not about just their ego,
Hmm.
but it's about doing the things that work and the things that matter and the things that avoiding those potholes along the way every chance possible.
Hmm.
But and I know, Jim, we learn more often from the things that we do that don't work,
Oh,
or
yeah.
than we do from the things that do.
Hmm.
And if we don't give um, if we don't give people, this is for all of our viewers who own a company, or our kids, if all the viewers who are parents, or somebody who is looking to us for guidance, if we don't give them the chance to think themselves and to potentially fall on their face
Hmm.
occasionally, you don't learn as much when
Hmm.
everything you do works as you
That's
do
so
when
true.
you find things that also don't work.
Yeah. I was trying to remember, there's been more than one, but there was one individual comes to mind. He's a great speaker.
Oh,
And
me?
Oh yeah, Emerson Brantley, duh, But Emerson, you're probably like this. In fact, I know you are to some degree. But this person was saying, I like when I speak, the last thing I want is for everybody to pat me on the back and tell me what a great presentation I gave. He says, I want people to, you know, challenge me and question me. What did you mean when you say this? He says, that allows me to get good, positive feedback because all feedback is positive. And that enables me to go and grow and take my game to a higher level.
Right.
And Emerson, I know for a fact you're wired like that.
Oh yeah. When I
Mhm.
write up, when I put together a campaign or create marketing for a company or for an individual or for a corporation, the last thing that I want to hear is, "Oh my gosh, you're so wonderful! How do you do this?" I don't need that.
Yeah.
What I really want is that constructive input,
Mm.
and let me know the things that from your experience and your knowledge and from your brain that you see. And if you have questions about something, maybe it just doesn't feel right, ask
Mhm.
why. And maybe
Mhm.
maybe I have a reason why, and sometimes maybe it just it's not a big deciding thing. It's not about pride. I tell people, I said, I'm not about pride of authorship.
Mhm.
What I'm about is finding the things that work, doing it collaboratively,
Mhm.
and making it better. That's it.
Mm.
It's not
Yeah.
about I came up with this idea, you didn't come up with this idea, and
Mhm.
it's none of that. That's all just a waste of life to go through
Yeah.
those kinds of things.
It certainly is. And one of the things that Emerson taught me, and I do this, in other areas of my life, but he taught me when I'm making a marketing statement about a product or a service or whatever, after I make that statement, ask myself a 2-word question. So what?
Yeah,
So what value does this bring to
yeah,
the person that's reading this? And if you're a mentor and you're going to give advice, so what value is that advice to the
right.
person you're speaking to? And if you don't ask them questions, you don't get feedback from them.
No,
You're not going to know whether or not that advice is acceptable, rejectable, or even if it means anything to them.
yeah. And it doesn't engage them in the process. There's the thing, and when I was in school, the thing that I studied, or my primary focus was in communications.
Mhm.
And one of the things that we learned, the difference in watching video versus, say, being in a live performance, even.
Mhm.
One of the things is, we plop. I'm going to use TV just because of the visual of it. We plop down and we turn it on, and it's okay. Wash over me, and I don't have to think a whole lot.
Mhm.
It's just washing over me. Well, that's good, And if you just need to kind of check out for a while and get your mind off of all of the things that you're trying to deal with, that's fine. But in terms of learning, in terms of sharing, in terms of training, in terms of communicating with people, that's not that effective. It
Mhm.
really isn't that effective. We can sit and watch a video
Oh, yeah.
and at the end of it, man, that was a good video. Yeah. What was the number one thing you got out of it? What was the
Mhm.
number two thing you got? What was it that made it the best? It's like you ask 3 or 4 of those questions, and pretty soon they're not really even connecting with the video.
Mhm.
It was just really good.
Yeah.
Well, really good doesn't matter. I remember. I'm going to shift over to a marketing conversation.
Okay.
This was a private city club, and they hired me to create a whole marketing program for them. And so I wrote it all up, and I went in. They didn't have salespeople now. This is a private city club. They had membership people, and they had all these different little terms that they thought meant something to them. But you know, I remember asking them, because they said, oh, our members would never respond to this. Well, show me the letter that you use that works the best, because they would say you had 200 people in the building that you worked in, and you were a member, and you wanted to send all of these people the letter, because, by the way, if you sponsored somebody into the club, you got like free dinner for you and your wife, Jim. So people would do stuff like that. But so I read this letter, and it was miserable. It was just a horrible letter. It was like, we are the gold standard, and we're beautiful, and this, and you'll be one of us, and blah, 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 blah. It makes me cringe. So I sat back and I tried to be understanding. I said, wow, that's an interesting letter. I said, when did you start using it? 1969. What? Really? Wow, it must be a great letter. How many people do you get from? Oh, we get a lot of people. Well, what do you mean by a lot of people? Man, the phone rings off the hook. Well, what do you mean the phone rings off the hook? I mean, how many actually become members? Oh, lots and lots. It's like they had no idea. They weren't testing anything against it. They'd been using it for however many years they'd been using it. And they didn't have any sense of, we should be trying different things and finding out how people respond and react. And this may or may not be the best thing. Maybe there's a better way to do it. And maybe people don't care about us being the biggest, greatest, fastest, wealthiest, prettiest, or whatever. What is it that the people are really looking for? And that is it. That's it. People talk about what's in it for me.
Yes.
And that's a little kind of a thing that we've all heard. But what I said that you were talking about is, so what? So who cares?
Yes.
What's the value there?
Yeah.
And we should be all be doing that when we're talking with people who are looking to us for guidance.
Oh, yeah. Because with young kids, the very first thing they're looking for, as I said before, they're looking for someone that's committed to their well-being. They got to know deep down inside that
It's
you
trust.
care. Yeah, that's trust. Exactly. And you've got to have that. And if you don't have it, they're going to pick up on it right away. And you've also got to have a deep respect for the young people.
Oh,
I mean, how many times have we older folks may say, notice I said may say, I don't understand the younger generation. It's because their generation thinks different than our generation.
That's how it's supposed to be.
Exactly, because think back when, us baby boomers, our parents, they looked at us and kind of like, oh, I just don't they called it generation gap. Remember that?
Well, they'd all come through the Great Depression.
Yes.
Yeah. They had a whole different outlook on experience of how the rug could be pulled out from under you, and how you could be at the top of the hill one day and at the bottom of the heap the next day. And people who had a work ethic like we would just die for today, but suddenly they're standing in soup lines. And so that whole generation and the thought process and everything else, that was different than the baby boomer generation that came after them. And every generation proceeds, but is in their own time period. It's just like the music. I use music as an example of this a lot of times, Jim. We can talk about old music and big band era and swing music and rock and roll and rockabilly and all of that. It doesn't matter. Our country and Western before there was just country and our hip hop or whatever genre you want to pull from. The thing is, at its heyday, it was the music of young people.
Yes.
Now, we look back at, the big band era and swing music and all of that. Well, that was like the music of our parents and grandparents.
Precisely.
So that was always old people music, not young people. But it wasn't when they were teenagers. When they were
Amen.
teenagers, that was the thing.
Yeah.
And it's so hard generationally to look at our parents, our grandparents, as just people and teenagers and struggling through the stuff and trying to figure things out and everything else, because they always are already grown up by the time we come into the world. We don't ever know them as youth.
Oh, isn't that the truth? And, you think back about what they went through, and us baby boomers, we look at our kids and grandkids, and we like to tell them, well, I've said this before. I remember a time when you'd have to get up, walk through 3 inches of shag carpet
Oh,
just
tell
to
me you don't
change.
do that, Jim.
I've done it, and not in a, listen to me kind of thing, but just
Oh,
joking way.
back in my
Yeah.
day, I got a
Yeah.
stick. I got a stick for Christmas one year. And I was
Mhm.
so happy on my birthday, they gave me a rock. Then I had a stick and a rock and I could play. It was
Oh,
like,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
tell me you don't do that stuff.
Oh, I do to tease the kids. I tell them, yeah, hey, just think how lucky you are. You got remotes and got all this technology. Back in my day, if we want to change the channel, we had to get up out of a chair. We had to walk through 3 inches of, this big shag carpet. It was always popular in the 70s with just to change the channel or to adjust the volume.
Just to take it on a different level. And one of my favorite sayings, and my wife isn't crazy when I say this, but your perception is reality. How the world that we see around us, yeah, there are things you can touch and everything else, but the world that we see around us are all filtered through our perception of what those things are and what those people are and what that culture is and what that food is and what that job is. It's all filtered. And, 5 or 10 people will have 5 or 10 different outlooks on the same thing. So it's recognizing that perception is reality. And when our perception, when you take the lid off of that just a bit and perceive that young people are the hope of tomorrow, young people have ideas, young people are going to make mistakes.
Oh,
Young people are going to figure out things we didn't figure out. Young people, it's like when you start taking, and I'm going to take it off of just young people. Okay, we're a couple of guys sitting here and talking. Donna's not here with us. And the thing is, Donna loves it when I talk like this. But the thing is, women are amazing and are able to do so many things and have so many different perspectives. And if you're watching and you're a woman, I value that. I cherish that because, look, old guys have run the show for a lot of years. I'm good giving y'all, 400, 500, 600 years to give it your run because I see those values.
Yes.
And of course, this is a guy who had 2 sisters and 3 daughters and I had 2 mother-in-laws and my wife, and even our dog was a girl. So, but I put a great value on that because that perspective, it doesn't mean that all women are not alike and all men are not alike. We know that. But I'm just saying the perspective is different.
Yes.
And when we value that difference, when we value that difference, that's where real growth starts happening. Because I don't have all the answers. I know I don't have all the answers. And fortunately, and my wife is brilliant, and she would say she didn't have all the answers either. But when we start putting our brain cells together and our perspectives together, and we start valuing those things in each other, and it's about children. It's about the difference in male or female or the genders. It's about differences in the different racial makeup of people, or the heritage of people, or the part of the world that people came from. I mean, all of these things are rich.
Oh, yeah.
And when we put a value on them,
Mhm.
we're richer as a people,
Oh, yeah.
as a country. We're richer.
Oh, yeah. I like to use the analogy of a flashlight. If you buy a common, 2D cell battery flashlight, and you put the batteries in there, you turn the light is so bright. But if you're able to put a longer sleeve onto the flashlight that will hold more batteries, let's say you put in 4 batteries, you turn the
Mhm.
light on, the light is much brighter. And my point in that analogy is that by Emerson and his wife, or you and as a mentor with a young person, sitting down and having open discussion, you have created a mastermind, and in
Mhm.
that mastermind will come ideas and energy that doesn't come to a single person. It just doesn't, because you get much more understanding and input. And when someone, if a young person that you're talking with uh, asks you a question or has a certain idea about something, this will spurn energy within you to be able to give them some feedback, input, or maybe add to the conversation to open up their minds even more. And
Yeah,
that's powerful, isn't it? That's extremely powerful.
it is. We're richer and stronger,
Mhm.
and we're not going to get over into political stuff right now. I know, but because I'm not and you're not, but
Uh-huh.
the values that we have and the knowledge that we have
Mm.
and the life changing effect that we've had
Hmm.
all over the world are a direct result of people from all over the world coming to America.
Mm.
And we called it the great melting pot, you know, and that's not a bad description of it. But when we look at it, people have people bring different DNA, if you will. And
Hmm.
there is DNA, but I mean, the mental and emotional and outlook and everything else. And some are better, some are less, but it doesn't
Hmm.
matter. We can't judge that all the time. Uh,
No.
the person who finds the cure for, say, prostate cancer could be a 14-year-old right now that's in
Hmm.
some war-torn country
Hmm.
trying to get out.
Yeah.
We don't have any. You can't measure the value and you can't. There's no way to put a gauge on
Mm-mm.
the human element and the human value.
Yeah. The
And that's
potential.
what makes us richer. The human potential. That's
Yes.
I've shared this before. Talking about potential. I did a lot of work with John and Greg Rice, who were the world's smallest twins, according to Guinness. They were like 19
Mhm.
inches tall, I think. And they were in my infomercial, and I traveled with them and spoke on the stage with them. But they used to say things like their mother was not especially educated in this, but just had a natural knack for it. But she would now picture this: they're 19 inches tall, Jim. Your
Okay.
counter, your counter in your kitchen is 30 inches tall. Okay, so
Hmm.
they're
Okay.
right. People would say, "Hi, what's it like? What's it like being such a short person?" And they'd say, "Well, I've never met a short person. I don't know." but their mother, gosh, I would have loved to have known her. She
Mhm.
would do things like take a dime, a couple of dimes and a couple of nickels and put them in her hand, and she'd say, "You know what? You're the dimes. The value isn't in the size. The value is in your heart." Or another thing
Oh.
that she would do, she would say, "You don't measure someone's value from the bottom of their feet to the top of their head,
Mhm.
but from their shoulders to the sky."
Oh, I like that.
Was she amazing?
Oh my goodness gracious.
How
And
did
you
she
said
come
it,
up with this
yeah,
stuff?
yeah. I mean, goodness gracious, those are comments you need to write down, make a mental note of,
Yeah,
from the shoulder to the sky.
yeah.
Goodness gracious. Oh,
That's the whole. It's but that's a perspective. That's changing a
hmm
perspective. 'Cause they would come home from school and they'd be crying because kids had picked on them or whatever. And
hmm
by the way, if you never heard of John and Greg, they were amazing. John passed away a few years ago, um, but they literally became multimillionaires in real estate.
Oh, yeah.
And they had some of the
Yeah.
funniest stories about how they had bought they'd buy some house that was like a mansion, and then later find out that the whole kitchen counter was melted or something from, and they'd never seen it. The stuff that they had, that they would come across, or the situations they ran into, but
Mhm.
they never stopped. They
Oh,
never
yeah.
stopped.
And that's one thing that people really enjoy too is when someone has the courage to, laugh at something that, they're, something they said or did or
Mhm.
something, anything in their world, because people can connect with that. And
Oh
that's
yeah.
what the youth want to do. They want to connect with someone that will really, they can connect with, that they can, they're looking for someone that's empathetic to them and there for moral support and there for the go-to person to be able to say whatever they want to and know that it's in a safe environment and teaching people, encouraging people, hey, you're going to make mistakes, make a joke out of it, because here on the TV show out in TV land, Emerson, many times uh, there's a lot of words I can pronounce off the air, but you put me in front of a camera and I go, and I just say, well, folks, I've got a degree in mispronouncing words correctly the first time.
Yeah.
Because people, we all do that. And people can relate to that. And if I laugh at myself, uh, you know, that's okay because they can appreciate that I'm this, down to earth, real person. And that is one of the things that is the foundation of being the real you when you show up to be a mentor to kids. They want to know the real you, not
Hmm.
some, let me tell you how, I graduated from this, this school or that school, I got a degree, and then, so what?
That's right.
I had to
What's in
bring
it for
back
me?
that, yeah, I had to bring back that so what, because,
We're talking about some of this, with John and Greg. There's a guy. Now, I've never met him. One day maybe I will, but he's Australian, and his name, and I'm butchering it, I'm sure, is Nick Vujicic.
oh, yeah,
Have you ever seen him?
yes, yeah,
Not Budacek. Not no. He didn't run for. He didn't run for president. It starts with a V, Vujicic, but he has no
yeah,
arms
no
and he has
arms,
no legs. And if
yeah,
you just look him up on YouTube, because he laughs, he laughs. He doesn't lay down some heavy-handed message. He he's just real. And and
yeah,
and and the message, of course, is, what's your excuse?
yes,
He gets around, he goes swimming, he goes hiking, he does all sorts of things. How can he do that without arms and legs? You know what? And Jim, you and I have talked about this. Being handicapped, perception is reality.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell you what, and I know you and I have talked about this many, many, many times. The people who others may look at as handicapped, they don't identify with that label.
Yeah.
Amen to that. That's my wife going, amen to that. Yeah,
That's
they don't
Anna
identify.
approved.
Yeah, it's Anna approved. No, they don't identify with that. And the thing is, an awful lot of times, the people who have all the reasons and excuses and everything else are the ones who really don't have any. You have
Oh, yeah.
everything going. And people say, "Oh, I never had any privilege. I never had any advantage given to me." Oh yeah, really? I bet in 5 minutes we could find a whole bunch of times where you had doors open for you, and you had opportunities given to you, and
Yes.
the ability to be somewhere where somebody else maybe wasn't. But it's not about that. It's about what you do with it. What did you do with it? And
You're exactly right.
When I recognize the advantages that have been given to me, I'm really valuing not just the people who did, but I'm also understanding that there are other people maybe without those advantages who had loads and loads and loads of qualifications, or the way that they thought and everything else would have totally changed the course of things.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because you think about people who make comments like that, and, chances are they got good health. Most of the time,
Normally,
they got good health. And so if you got good health, you got heartbeat in your veins and breath in your lungs, that's something to be very, very thankful for, because if you got good health and you're able to do physically anything that you want to, there's a lot of people who have to make adjustments in their lives to be able to just do what you take for granted. And many times in life, I think we take a lot for granted.
Ann's raising her hand on that one.
There you go.
Saying, don't tell me I have limitations because I'm diabetic.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Since she's jumping in on some of this, Ann was diagnosed as a type 1 diabetic when you were what, 8 years old?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is being broadcast right now.
Oh hell.
But she was diagnosed as a type 1 diabetic, and they couldn't figure out why this little girl in the bed, wouldn't wake up, and had a sugar drip in her arm, and they called some old doctor, this little doctor, Dr. DeRagio.
He just wandered onto the ward.
He wandered onto the ward, and they said, "Could you take a look at this little girl?"
Who's dying.
Who was dying? Yeah, because at that time, that was a death sentence. I mean, it might not happen right away, but in 5, 10, 15 years, because they didn't have any way to treat it like they do now.
Oh.
They didn't have blood testing that they could do on the people. So there's just so many advantages that were there, but people say to her, "Oh, wow, how did you live with diabetes? You poor thing." And boy, I tell you what, not many things will make her rail out again faster.
I just said it made me healthier.
Yeah, when I met her, I had actually helped. I had actually helped my first wife in her master's degree, which happened to be in diabetic education. So I understood more than the average bear about it. And I remember when Ann and I were first seeing each other, I said at one point, after I'd asked her to marry me, I said, "When I marry you, I'll marry your diabetes." Well, she wasn't that keen on that whole. I thought it was a good thing to say. She wasn't that keen on it, because what we're talking about here, it doesn't identify based on that in her life. That is a part of her life.
Yeah.
But she doesn't identify the way.
It sure is not a handicap.
It's not a handicap. John and Greg at 19 inches high. 19 inches high. John and Greg didn't identify their dwarfism that was the condition they had, as a liability or as a reduction or anything in anything that they should have in their life. And yet there are people, I wear glasses. There are people who, because their glasses are real thick and they don't have good vision, they think somehow that's a major, liability for them. So perception is reality. And they chooses a perception of health and wellness and living your life. John and Greg chose a perception. Their size didn't matter. Nobody was going to write them a check because they were 19 inches tall, Oh,
yeah.
And they lived full lives.
And I bet their family, I really bet their family, like my family, just
seamlessly switched gears. And
Oh, yeah.
this is the new normal, and
Yeah.
it's no big deal.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So all of those things matter. And when we're working, whether it's with young people that we're working with, or whether it's older people that we're
Those
working
old
with.
parts.
Yeah, I love Ann. Okay, I'm going to tell you a story on Ann. Okay.
Okay.
So the first time that we met, the first thing she ever said to me, Jim.
Are you any good at what you were doing there, working on the ship? Was that it?
On
my boat.
on her boat,
sailboat.
on her sailboat for the light parade that year. And so I'd been invited over by a friend, and she had about 8 or 10 people on there with her. And so she shakes my hand, and we meet. And the first thing she said to me was, "So, are you useful or just decorative?"
Which is honestly something I used to say to my male students in art studio classes, because it invariably was the women who were moving the easels around, which were big, sort of awkward things.
Yeah,
Mhm.
they are. They're big.
So I just started using that phrase came up when I'd see one of the guys standing around with his finger up his nose.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the very first thing she ever said. I said, "Well, I think I can be kind of handy." And she said, "Well, do you at least know how to work a screwdriver?" And I said, "Right-handed or left-handed?" Now, I didn't know that her entire family was left-handed, but that resonated. And so, from then on.
Oh boy. I love that story.
You got to spend a few days with Ed.
Oh yeah.
She's got the greatest spirit.
Oh my goodness, yes. It was just a wonderful time, and we had together up there, and I cherish moments like that, because when you're working with young people, look for ways to have fun.
Oh yeah.
And for ways to help them achieve personal growth. Oh my goodness gracious.
And older people too.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'm still working on my personal growth.
Thanks for letting me in.
Oh, thanks for your input. We appreciate it. But when it comes to personal growth, think about when we were young and we were able to do something for the first time, and how it made us feel, even though it was a little bitty thing, but every little win is a win, regardless. And kids need that blessed reassurance that, hey, way to go, congratulations. You may have tried 2 or 3 times, so what?
I remember the first date I was on in the family car, and we were pulled over to the side of the road, and which wasn't unusual. But when we started to pull out, I got a flat tire in the process, and I remember the first time, because I had to get out in this dark road, and I'm trying to change the tire, and I remember when I came back. When I finally got back home, it was late, and my dad was pretty hot and upset about it. But when I told him I had a flat tire, and so, what did you do? I said, well, I got out the spare and I changed it, and it totally changed everything. I didn't end up getting in trouble that night. In fact, he was real proud of his son, because I had a flat tire, and I pulled out the jack and the tire, and I changed the tire.
There you go.
No, I never told him where we were pulled over or why. Well, I'm sure he may have figured that part out.
Oh yeah. When you were telling that story, it reminded me of these 4 teenagers. A true story. I think I read it one time in Reader's Digest. But anyway, this guy was talking about when him and his 3 buddies, they were, high school seniors, and they didn't want to take an English test or whatever. And they decided to, skip the first hour and then, show up in the homeroom right before, because their homeroom was also the first class, and show up right before, the bell rings for a second, like, hey, we're here. We're finally here. And the teacher says, oh, you missed the test or whatever. It's, oh yeah, we're very sorry about that. She says, why are you late? And they said, well, we had a flat tire. So she sent all 4 kids, one in each corner of the classroom, and says, I got one question. I want you to write down and tell me which tire was flat.
Oh boy.
They did not see that coming. As smart as they were,
That was
they
a smart
didn't.
teacher.
Yeah.
That was a smart teacher.
Yeah. And so that, he said, we learned a very important lesson then, about, what we should say to our teacher. And when it comes to being a mentor, the Big Brothers and Big Sisters is an organization that has showed interest. We're going to have them on future shows. Also, the Boy Scouts of America. We're reaching out to the Cub Scouts because these are great organizations. And if you're interested in becoming a mentor, like a big brother or big sister, go to the Big Brothers and Big Sisters the website and check it out, because the youth, they need big brothers, they need big sisters. And, a lot of the youth, they respect, the gray-haired guys and girls because we bring wisdom, we bring compassion, we bring understanding. We've been there, we've done it. And there's a certain level of respect, but respect is a two-way street. You've got to give it to the young people. You got to show them that you care about them, that you're there for them, you're committed to them. Mm-hmm. And you're a go-to person they can talk to in confidence, because a lot of young people today don't have someone that they can open up to and just have a good, warm-hearted conversation. That is so critical, because Emerson, I know you've done a lot of work in that field.
Yeah, I was a children's pastor at one point for about 5 years, and I have grandchildren, and I started I didn't start it, but I was the treasurer one year and a president another year for a day camp for underprivileged kids. We had 450 kids, and took them out. What was I thinking? We took them all out and took them camping, Jim. We took them camping. Yeah. And, but, for many, it was the first time that they'd ever experienced being out in nature and not in the city at night and spending the night. And, it's with our grandkids, in taking them, for a special little lunch or something like that. We've ridden back on the ferry a time or two. Well, in a couple of cases, they hadn't ever ridden on the ferry, seeing dolphins and other boats and things. So their first experiences, and even if it's not the first experience, it can be fun, but first experiences.
At our wedding on the boat.
Oh.
I mean, that's something about.
Well,
They learned that, being on a boat was not a weird thing because of the sailboat.
Well, our grandkids apparently were at our wedding.
No. I'm sorry. I'm leaving now.
We got about 2 minutes left, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to have to cram this in.
Anyway, you do what you can do with what you've got. And the thing is, things that are commonplace to you. And I used to just get under the car and change the oil. I'd get one of my daughters to crawl under there with me. They loved it. They loved it. Doing stuff like that is building the steps, are fixing a light, are things like that, asking them to be part of it and letting them figure some of it out, being their helper, not just having them hand you tools, but letting them get up there and do some of it.
Yeah.
Those are things that are invaluable.
Yeah. And share with them what you're thinking, what you might be doing. And if they buy in on it, then my goodness gracious, by all means, go for it, because it's going to wind up being a wonderful experience for them, some that they will remember and treasure, because I know with all the kids that you've worked with in your lifetime, you've been a mentor to a lot of kids, more than you'll probably ever know. And that's a blessing in life. It really is.
Yeah. And it's bringing that value. And I have to say this on having my daughters work with me on stuff around the house. Well, their mom didn't always agree with that, my first wife. But the thing is, they loved it, and I'd say, well, you don't have to, but I'd really like it if you'd help me. And
Yeah.
oh no, Dad, none of my girlfriends, none of their dads ever do this. So it was like this cool thing for them.
Mhm, mhm,
And what I wanted them to know was they can figure it out.
mhm,
And if they want to have somebody and hire them to do something when they're living on their own,
mhm.
and they're trying to pull the wool over their eyes, they're smart enough to know, wait a minute, that's
Yeah,
not how that is. I'm
there
not
you
stupid.
go. There you go.
And that's what
That's
I wanted. I wanted them to know they could do it, or they could hire someone to do it
Mhm.
and be smart enough to be able to know.
And they would have the foundation of knowledge to build from. That's so
Yeah.
important.
And confidence, the
Yeah.
confidence.
And ladies and gentlemen, our time is gone. We want to thank you so much for tuning in, and be sure and share our show with others. And we'll hear some more about Emerson and Ann's escapades on a future show, I promise, because this is too good to pass up. Remember to love yourself first, then you can love others. Most importantly, love yourself enough to forgive yourself and be good to yourself. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a good day. Bye-bye.